It's in that achieving usually that the imposter voice shows up. So it's like running a marathon and having somebody kick you in the foot right before it. So it can be really impactful to then develop the self-talk. So first is awareness, then separating what the voice.
My mission is to empower women to fearlessly embrace and live their authentic lives. Many of us can relate to this shared experience despite our numerous accomplishments, where we often struggle with self-limiting beliefs that hinder our ability to embrace our success. Instead of basking in our achievements and feeling proud, we're plagued by the nagging feeling that we're somehow deceiving others. Questions like, do I truly deserve this? Did I genuinely achieve this? Do I even possess the necessary knowledge? Become our constant companions. This phenomenon is not known as imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is an internal psychological struggle where we feel like a fraud in certain aspects of our lives, even in the face of undeniable success. This persistent fear of being exposed to fraud can profoundly affect high achievers. If you constantly wrestle with self-doubt, habitually second-guess your decisions, attribute your success to luck rather than your hard work, or feel that your worth is contingent only on the latest accomplishments, then you might be struggling with imposter syndrome. However, it is important to distinguish between those moments when self-doubt is a natural part of life, such as starting a new job or becoming a new parent, versus the irrational, exaggerated belief that you are fundamentally incompetent, which characterizes imposter syndrome. This syndrome often manifests as restlessness, nervousness, and negative self-talk, and symptoms of anxiety and depression can often accompany it. So today, we will discuss imposter syndrome in greater detail with my delightful guest, Sarah Kabanta. Sarah is trained and certified in leadership and life coaching through the International Coaching Federation. Over the years, she began consulting and co-creating with various leaders and private clienteles. She has worked with many business leaders and business executives. At the same time, she serves on the Los Angeles chapter, a board of ICF, and has trained as an organizational systems coach. In addition, she won the Global Award for ICF chapter recognition for her leadership, diversity, and innovation. And later, she formed her own company called Dreams Transform Reality, where she helps people get a clear vision of the work they love and overcome imposter syndrome. Welcome, Sarah. I'm so excited to have you as a guest today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And what a great introduction.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to dive in. So first, if you can start off telling a little bit about yourself and your journey and how you are where you are today.
Yeah, thank you. And it's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to getting to know your audience as well. So yeah, I coach women to overcome imposter syndrome and other limiting beliefs that stop them from getting the life they want. So you gave a little intro about my professional life, and I will say that, I'm originally from the East Coast. I live in Los Angeles now, and I have been working with women since college, since I went to Bard College decades ago. And this just drew me in to help, develop women because I feel like there should be more support. I was raised by a single mom, so I'm a born feminist back in the day. And so that got me interested in wanting to work with women and to help us become independent, financially successful in all realms of life. So that's how I first got my start. And then I've worked with leaders and women all around the globe. I do trainings, I do groups, and I work one-on-one with people. So I love, love, love what I do. And it makes my day when I hear some good news. And I just got some good news. I just got a text from a client who said she closed a $5 million deal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
That's
yes.
wonderful.
Yes, totally. So those, I look at those wins as wins for the person, but, wins for women,
Of
you know,
course.
yes, yes, because having a voice in the world and being able to stand up, and there's so much of it in today's world. So that's a little bit about me.
That's wonderful. What a self-rewarding moment for you, trying, helping your client get to that level. So that's great.
Yes.
So if you can tell us now a little bit more about imposter syndrome, what led you to learn about it? Did you suffer yourself initially with it, or how did you even get into this actual topic?
Yeah. So how I got into it was sort of a confluence of three events, I think, or three factors. And throughout my career and throughout my life, I had a little bit of impostery feelings. And what that felt like for me, and some of the listeners may recognize this for themselves, when up for something big, I would feel this like, it's sort of like the elevator's going up, but the floor is going down. Somehow
Okay.
I would feel like I'd have to not achieve because it would upset someone, not achieve because it would challenge other people. Even as a kid, being a dancer, walking into a room, feeling like my posture was, sitting up straight and all of that, and feeling that would even challenge people. So sort of that's how I noticed it in myself. So whenever we're crossing an edge, whenever I was up for a big challenge, that's when it would come up. So that was the first one. The second one was I'm a big learner, so I started researching this. And I started researching that the amount of people that have this, and I would say it's mostly women, but there are some men. The people who claim to have it are Michelle Obama, Sheryl Sandberg, Serena Williams, like Lady Gaga, Emma
Wow.
Stone, Tina Fey, Chris Martin. I mean, these are people who are up to big things.
They're way up there. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That's
So
that's
it's high
shocking. Yeah.
achievers. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think we have this idea that it's people who aren't achieving, and that is such a false belief. It's high achievers who are up to big things. And they could be in the middle of their transition, in the beginning of their transformation, but they are up to big things and they're going to succeed. So I started noticing that. And then thirdly, I was coaching a lot of leaders who said they had, they would say, I have a little impostery syndrome going on, so we sort of like form it in a way that feels comfortable. And I started working more deeply, using the ORSC training, the relationship systems coaching, working with the different parts, the different voices. That's how I got into it.
That's really interesting. You know what you mentioned earlier about how you didn't want to achieve because you were afraid that you were going to affect other people. I feel like that's really often I've seen it often through females, because they're afraid, like if they want to share like a dream or move up and they don't want to share it with their friends or share it with their group settings because they're afraid they're going to look at them differently, or it's going to put everything off balance. Why do you think that happens? I mean, that's very true, but it's a fact.
Yeah, it's natural for people around the person who's transforming, right, to say, what's going on with you? Are you okay? Because it might look like all different kinds of things. So that piece is natural, but that means that other people have to look at themselves also.
Right.
So if we're up to big things, if all of a sudden, the career takes off, have this high level executive position, or the business takes off, making seven figures or whatever it is, that means other people have to look at themselves and say, what am I not doing? Or who am I? And so I think that's the primary reason that people have a challenge with it. It just means change, and it means like, do I have to change?
Right.
The other people might be thinking, do I have to change? And so really surrounding ourselves with people who are also up to big things, who can, people who are more supportive and see your success more than you do even. Those are the people to be around. Those are the people
That you need to surround yourself with those people. Exactly.
Yes, yes. So there's not going to be any competition. There's not going to be any, negative competition. And so there won't be any feeling of, oh, I should narrow down my scope in order to not challenge,
So they're going
other
to be
people.
okay with me, and I don't want to challenge this group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And likewise, like, so for example, if a woman is an executive on, it's like a senior level position and the only woman, she might feel like if I show up as strong, if I show up as confident, then there will be pushback. And sometimes there is.
Yeah.
So that pushback could be from the all male board or the all male senior staff, just as they acclimatize themselves to who is this woman and where, what are her credentials and does she deserve to be here? So there's all these nuances to work through. So there's a lot of different areas where it can show up, but primarily for high achievers doing big things.
Yeah, that's very true. So, I mean, how do you think we can overcome imposter syndrome? What tools can you give us to help us overcome our limiting beliefs about ourselves?
Yeah, so there's just many things that I work on with women, but one of them is developing the awareness of what is the internal experience exactly. And so that takes a little bit of time. So it's like going to the gym, the first day we're not going to have those muscles yet. And so it's going to take a little bit of time sometimes. And so developing the muscle of awareness, developing the muscle of, oh, how did I do that was actually commendable today? So we develop the awareness of what is actually going on. What's the truth? What's the truth in the success that we're having? And what's the truth in how we pivot or maybe have blind spots that we're sort of self-negating?
Right.
And so becoming aware is one of them. And I like to use just, meditation is a great way to become aware. 5 minutes of meditation on a daily basis, 5 minutes just to say,
I feel like meditation is the answer to everything these days, right? Like if we just take 5 minutes to just quiet the noise and really like focus and just because we're constantly thinking, making to-do lists, worrying, stressing out, and just doing that, it really changes everything.
It really does. It really does. And sometimes it can be hard for high achievers because we want to go off and achieve.
Yeah, it's
Five
like
minutes.
wasting time. We can't waste time. Those 5 minutes, we can do so much.
I have 79 things on my to-do list. I can't spend 5 minutes.
Right. It's so true.
Yeah. And so usually in a group setting, I think it's really supportive of that because once we see the other people doing it, there's the accountability.
And you're motivated, you're accountable.
Motivated,
right.
Seeing their wins, 5 minutes actually, somebody might say, I heard all that I needed to hear in terms of the direction of my day. I asked a question and I heard an answer. And so I have to agree with you that it solves so much to become still and calm and listen to what's going on in our own minds and bodies and in our day, just focusing on the day. So having the meditation is really helpful. And then also we look at the imposter voice, just really looking at where is it coming from? And just to say what is imposter voice, I would say it's like critical voice, where's that critical voice coming
negative
from?
talk, right?
Negative talk. Yeah. What's going on? Whose voice is it? When you hear the whisper, is it actually someone's voice specifically? Or is it your voice? And sometimes it's just an internalized voice. So we begin to look at the different parts of the person and the reality that's going on. So it's actually a fun exercise, believe it or not, listening to and looking at the imposter voice and the imposter syndrome. I look at it kind of like going, have you ever been to a yoga class and it's like such a good release and such a good relief that maybe there's some tears that come out?
I've been there. I do hot yoga, and there is many times those tears have just come out, and it's great because it's dark and everyone's sweating and nobody can tell.
That's right.
It's perfect. It's my safe place.
Exactly. And if we're in a group and everybody has their, Zoom, maybe they're standing up so you can't see all that's going on. And if it's a safe group, then people can come back and say, whoa, I just did this the other day with a group, and it's so powerful to say and put voice to what is actually occurring. Right. What's going on inside that's saying like, last time I did something that I really wanted to do, I really wanted to make an impression. It was like, whatever it is, speaking to a board, writing a book. What are some of the other ones? There's so many goals that people are working on in these groups. It's in that achieving usually that the imposter voice shows up. So it's like running a marathon and having somebody kick you in the foot right before it.
Ah.
So yeah, and as a half marathoner myself, but yeah, and it can be really impactful to then develop the self-talk. So first is awareness, then separating what the voices are that are going on, and developing a safe voice, developing a voice that says, like, your inner best friend, your inner higher self, that says, like, you got this, you can do that, and that becomes natural.
So the
So
inner voice kind of takes over the negative voice, right?
yes, yes, we can start to listen to it, because before that point, high achievers, I think it's really hard for us at the end of the day, and I include myself as a high achiever
Me
also,
too.
at the end of the day, to spend time going, like, what did I do well today? Usually high achievers don't really want to do that, because they want to go achieve on something else, like making some masterpiece for dinner, or there's something else that we're working towards. So just establishing, what did I do well today? When I did that thing, what was really meaningful that I brought to the table? What quality, what is the essence of who I am that I brought that was different and made an impact and influenced the people who were there? And really looking at that and being able to be honest about our value. Because if we can't own the value, how can we show up in the world owning our value?
Right. That's very true.
Yeah. So that becomes part, being able to establish that part, the inner best friend or higher self, the critical voice or imposter voice, and being able to choose in the moment to listen to the inner best friend or the inner higher self, and being able to toggle over there as soon as it comes up. So it's training, just,
Yeah.
some
So
training.
seeing the signs and kind of shifting yourself to the other voice. Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a lot of practice, but I think that's a great tool.
Yeah, yeah. And furthermore, having them talk to each other, which is really, Gottman based. It's really parts, having them talk to each
We have a
other.
battle.
Yeah, they can talk it out, So, if we have a vision for our year, and so the vision might be the highest self's vision. What is what is you as your superwoman best self that you see for this year?
Right.
And, and establishing what that is. And then what's the undertow? What's the critical voice saying about it? And usually it sounds something like, who do you think you are? You're not good enough. You don't have 10 of the 10 qualities, or job attributes. So just establishing, and it sort of like makes you nauseous, like thinking about it, right? But
Right.
just
Right.
being familiar with it and being able to toggle over there to the higher self. And, it takes like 20 minutes to do these exercises, and they are revelatory.
Yeah. I think that's a great tool. I would imagine that it works. That's really good.
Yeah, yeah, it's very powerful, very powerful. And then powerful to have people then take those back into their actions and see themselves moving forward, showing up as their highest self.
Right. Right. Now, Sarah, the other question I had for you is, why do you think people have imposter syndrome? Is it something like, could it be from their upbringing, or is it just in their personality? How does one get this syndrome?
Yeah, so there's this imposter syndrome originally came from two doctors in 1978, which I'm sure Suzanne Imes and Pauline Clance. And the two things that they talk about, which are very interesting to me, is in the upbringing piece, they say that in the study they talk about the parent who is, not the parent, but the nature of never being able to get something right in the family. That's one piece. So never feeling like the grades are quite as good as maybe somebody else, or
Or a
some
sibling, or
idealized
yeah.
person or sibling. That's how they pointed out, actually, is that it's not quite as good as the smart kid. Well, you're not going to be the smart one, so why don't you go be the pretty one?
Right, right.
That kind of thing. And then the other side is actually the message that you can do no wrong. It's actually a disservice, so the message is you can do no wrong. Everything you do is like the Midas touch. And so your grades, and so it's not based in reality. So then when they grow up, they feel like, oh,
So
I
it
should be
could
doing
either
better.
be so either it could be like that critical parent who is just like, or like the controlling parent that never allows, like, oh, you don't know how to fold this laundry, I'm going to do it for you. You don't know how to do this, I'll do it. Or comparing, that child to another person, whether it's a friend's child or a sibling, or giving them way too much, like giving them a huge head where they just think that they're just amazing, too smart, too good for the world. So they just go out with this huge responsibility, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we think that that's going to be a really big service to the kid to really build them up. But if it's not based in reality, first of all, it makes them dependent.
Yes.
And then second of all, it's not based in reality. So they might be sort of dissatisfied and then have imposter syndrome when they show up for a job interview. And the boss is not saying like, you have the Midas touch. They're saying you're not quite right for this.
And it shocks their system.
And it shocks their system. And then, so then there's that sort of freeze that comes over. So, I think it can come from the upbringing. And I really believe in that study.
I do too. I do too. And I'm not to interrupt you, but one of the other things I was going to say, one thing I've seen a lot or read about is that when we're, complimenting our children, one of the things that we can do to avoid, because we all love our kids and we want to be like, oh my gosh, you're doing amazing. You're so smart. But instead of just going immediately and say, you're amazing, you're the best, you're the greatest, really attach that compliment to something they've achieved. Like, I really like the way you treated your sister today, or you did such a good job. I love this, 100% on your test. So as long as something is attached to it, so they know there's a reason, and you're just giving them a compliment to help their confidence, but it's not just like, you're amazing, you're super,
yes.
and constantly doing that randomly, because I know a lot of parents do that. That's something I feel like our listeners should know, that this is a good technique to avoid doing, especially with the younger kids as they grow older. Actually give them a compliment that it means something and it's attached to some service or behavior that they have done.
Yes, and it's such a great point that you're bringing that up in that moment, because it's not based on identity, it's based on behavior.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Carol Dweck talks a lot about that in the growth mindset, how it's based on that. And so it's so valuable, and it's valuable for, managers with their teams, parents with their kids, coaches with their clients, all across the board, so that there's something to strive for. Because if it's identity based, we think
what will they strive for? Exactly.
Yes. And that's actually one of the tells of imposter syndrome. Why go for the goal? Because if I get it, what's left? Like as if there's nothing left after that.
Yeah.
What if I achieve this the penultimate, I'm living in paradise and I'm with my partner, my kids are happy and I'm doing the dream job. What if there's nothing else? Sort of an existential crisis. And so that, I think, can come from, basing things on identity rather than behavior and action.
Right. And I think if you notice, there's been a lot of times where you see, as we were talking earlier, a lot of people, from actors or whatnot, that they're doing amazing. And then all of a sudden you hear severe depression, they kill themselves, and in our eyes, we're like, oh, they have the house, the job, the career, everything. But internally, it's like, that's probably where they're at. It's like, oh, well, I have everything. Now what? And I'm, like internally, they don't have that happiness, and it just, they, hit rock bottom.
Yeah. And it's like, it's probably based on something it's not internal. It's based on external factors.
Yeah.
So it's a great point. And so, so it can come from there. And I think it also comes from, back to your question of where do we get it, or where does it come from? It could also come from, society, those social mores that we learn as females, those old fashioned ones kind of stick around. You're meant to be, what is it? Seen, not heard.
Yes.
Those are so old, but they're still around.
Yeah.
Seen, not heard. That's just terrible. And so, we can pick them up from society just in that kind of way. I was looking at an Instagram video the other day where they were, the interviewer was asking all these male sports victors these sort of typical female questions, or questions that female athletes get asked, and the shock on their face, it was hilarious. Like, why don't you do a little twirl and show us your outfit? Like, literally female athletes are being asked these questions.
Oh my goodness.
Or like, what do you think of all the comments about your helmet head? I think it was the race car driver or something. And he's like, he just laughed it off because they're not used to it. But if you grow up, for your whole adult life, child life, and you hear these things which are demeaning, devaluing to the thing that the person is actually up to, like winning the World Cup or some sort of trophy, and demeaning them to say like your outfit isn't on quite right, or your body is the type that the people voting on like. So it's based on these external factors that have nothing to do with the actual talent that somebody has trained their whole life for. So so I think it can come from society, so family and society, and then I would include that it also could come from a job. So a lot of people that have, that are in these startups or so forth, that it's a really intense environment.
Right.
Yeah. And, fast moving. So some of the messages can be like, that one that never make coffee. Like if you're female, just never make coffee, like ever. Don't bring baked goods. These things are so old fashioned, but wow, some of these, CEOs and senior executives and stuff like that, it lingers. So, it's amazing how there won't be a seat at the table, or mysteriously you won't be invited to a meeting. And so women are found, having to sort of strive and fight for their place at the table, even after they won it in title. So that can have an impact. And so, having a coach, to talk to about it, or a group to transform the story that we make up about
ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much. Well, along the same lines, so why do you think that women primarily use people-pleasing methods to overcome their feelings of doubt about themselves? Because I noticed that, amongst a lot of different people, whether it's the mom that overpleases her child or her friends, or the wife who overpleases the husband, or in a work setting, are they trying to suppress their insecurities by going like completely overboard? Is that the method? Or
yeah, it's such a great point that I believe it comes down to control. People pleasing comes down to, if I control this person, I'll be okay. If I, make them happy, which is control. And if I, fawn and be kind and make jokes and like make them like me, which is people pleasing. If I do those things, then I'm safe. I can keep my job. I can keep my whatever it is. And so I think it's learned behavior to be a people pleaser. I don't think, babies come out of the womb and instantaneously females know how to do that. It's absolutely trained behavior, that you're supposed to make sure it's okay for you to give your idea, all this stuff, which is out the window with a lot of the people that I work with now. The younger generations too don't really have that. They're like, I have an idea, I'm going to share it.
Yeah, that's true.
And yeah. And so, but then there is some sort of ageism that does occur too. Like they're too young to be, leading at their level. So it does, I think, have all these different ways, but people pleasing. Yeah, it's tricky, right? It's so tricky. I don't know what you think, but we're sort of taught to be kind and polite and lead with that. And sometimes it amazes me. And as a learner, I watch some interviews on the news and so forth. And the women who are in these high level positions, there's not a smile to be found, which it doesn't need to go to that level.
Right.
But they're overcompensating to assure that they're not going to be seen, or that they're not going to feel themselves people pleasing.
Right. They're trying to change that image. So they might go to the opposite way.
Yeah. Kind of over-index on the serious mode.
More stoic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And I appreciate, and you can sort of see the gradations of all the different things that women are doing and trying and being. And yeah, I appreciate how we're really striving as a population, I see, and as a culture, to get out of those norms and to give women more opportunities so that they don't have to be seen, not heard.
Right. It's like all this history that we're trying to fight and overcome, but we will still follow through, and we're making great movements. So
yeah. And I'm an eternal optimist, and yeah, being able to change these things in our sphere, whether it be at work, in families, and in our circles, I think really is what it comes down to in looking at life satisfaction. One of the exercises I like to have people do is write their eulogy and say what they wanted for their life. How did you want to be seen? What do you really, when it comes down to it, you're not there. What do you want people to be saying? And what do you want the tenor of conversation? Because at a ceremony or a service, the tenor of the person's life is there.
Right.
And so what's the essence of what you want to bring now and in your eulogy? And if it's not there, it's not usually a huge adjustment, but it's something to just look at and sort of attune to. Oh, I see. Because for some reason, it's much more clear when we see it through the lens of a eulogy.
Of course. That is very powerful. I think it's a very powerful technique. I like that because when you think about it really deeply, at the end of the day, what do you want people to value as, or what have you left for people, or what are they going to say about you? So it's like those are the main things of life.
Yeah, what's your legacy? Like
your legacy is huge.
Yeah, if it's with your kids, if it's a book, if it's some sort of research. And that's something that I think is profoundly important also for women to do that research, write that book, because we're rewriting our future history. So that it's not just his story, so that it's more inclusive of the story that we're making and the story that we're telling of who we are as a society.
Right.
But so whatever it is in there, and then if it's not in that eulogy, don't do it, because I don't know about you, but the offers really come in for all of these different opportunities, right? And so you can't possibly do all of them. And sometimes something will sound good, but if it's not part of the established vision from the eulogy, then it's just a no.
Right.
There's no hard decision.
And I think in a way too, you can even like work backwards. Like if you do the eulogy and you can kind of see, wait, these are all the things that I want, but I'm not doing any of these. So what can I do to get there? Right. Like for someone who's kind of lost their path, which is actually the next question I was going to say. So in your line of work, I know you help many people find the job they want to do. Sometimes it's difficult. It's like, how can we get that clarity about the work that we love? Because you started the interview with saying how much you love what you do. It's like, how did you get there? How do you know what's the right path? Like, how do any of us know what's the right path for us in our career?
It just almost like made me have, it's just so emotional in it. And because I think back to when I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a GM of a large theater in Los Angeles and doing these events and asking people, what's your vision? What do you want to see up on stage? These famous celebrities and stuff, and helping them get that up there. And at the end of the day, I was like, oh my gosh, nothing like sort of being the dresser, so to speak, or who writes the budgets. I'll just be over here in the front of house. And my dream changed, and I didn't know what the dream was. And probably some of the listeners can relate. Like, I don't know what the dream is. I can't find it. It's like walking to the ocean edge and seeing all these oysters. Where's the pearl? But I believe that we know. I believe that we know what that is. And so through conversations, sort of like with the eulogy, through the conversation of discovery. And I'll give a really simple one because it's, to actualize, what I'm saying is that to look at, what do you scroll through? What do you, in the old days, it was like the newspaper, what are the articles, like what magazines, what just enthralls you, excites you to no end? You can be tired, you can be awake. You always look at that thing. Is it baking? Is it clothing? Is it, running businesses? Is it running a global organization? When it comes down to it, what is that enthralls you? And so looking at podcasts, looking at where do we go to fill up, and looking at that and following that path. And then, another one is just writing down the 10 things you think you want to do, and each day cross one off. And I know that sounds like flipping a coin, but as you do this each day, cross one off, Monday, Tuesday, and you're left with one. And, and it's like, it's pretty clarifying because it's either right on or it will tell you where you would actually want to go.
Right.
So yeah, so looking at that, and I mean, it's so relieving to love what you do, right? And just to have found it finally. And I do believe it changes, and allowing for it to change. So if somebody's like at a place where like, I don't think I want to do this, whatever it is, whether it's like the overworking or it's just not the passion, because you can overwork in something you love and it's not overworking, it's like, right. And so if somebody's at that stuck place, really, it's okay to make a change.
It's having that, I guess, confidence and challenging that fear, being, because we all hear that little voice, like we're talking again, that inner voice, but not the negative one, the one that's like telling us like, you're not happy, you need to leave, you need to quit, but we're fearful. I think that's a huge thing, right? It's like, oh, well, I have this job, it's a steady income. Do I really want to leave it? Or what if I fail? What will people think?
Yeah. And in our work that we have recordings and we have group stuff that where the two voices are talking to each other. The voice that says, you're not happy, and the other voice that says like, oh, I kind of wonder what it would be like to run a business or a side hustle or be a, social commenter or whatever it might be, and have them have a conversation. Duke it out, so to speak, but not duke it out, but just have a lovely conversation. And to be patient. It's okay to change your job 5 times. It's okay. I actually recommend people to like just do a job, especially if they're out of college and they want to step into something. Just try. Rather try and be, a volunteer in something and discover in 6 months that you hate it, rather than get a job and be signed up for life or for a decade.
I remember reading something. It was about an attorney who didn't want to be an attorney and just really, it was an article, and hated her job. And she was really confused and stressed out about what she wanted to do. But she kept saying, well, the last 10 years, law school, all of this hard work. And then a friend of her says, like, okay, I get it. You feel like you've wasted 10 years. But what about the next 30, 40 years of your life? Are you willing to sacrifice that 10 years, because of that investment that you made? And it was just like, so eye-opening. I was like, that is so true. A lot of us do that. We go, oh, like, wait, but no, I went to, medical school. I did this. I can't just throw that out the door. But it's like, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? You're just going to live in this, miserable job that you hate and never be fulfilled.
Yes, or a relationship or
relationship.
Like,
yes,
oh, I've got
exactly.
5 years in, I've got to stay for 30.
I have to stay. Exactly. Even though we don't get along, I've invested 10 years.
Yeah. What will people think? And so it's like having that ability to say, like you said, confidence to say, okay, there really is something else. Let me investigate it. And one step in front of the other. It doesn't have to be overnight.
So what's the best way to uncover our confidence? That was my next question.
Yeah. So uncovering confidence, really, I think it boils down to such a natural conversation. It just boils down to that authenticity and that purpose. All different cultures have a word for that purpose. And that really shows us how important that is. Like the Japanese call it the ikigai, and the Costa Ricans call it La Vida plan. And so, what is the plan that's, I believe is in our DNA? What's really written there? And when I think back to being like, I think I was like 7 or 8, and I used to play with my little friends in the neighborhood. The one memory I have was like writing on a chalkboard and being like, da, 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 like teaching and, and wanting to like be of service and telling. And it's just a flash in my memory, but within that is a jewel of a reservoir of a deep feeling of satisfaction. And so, confidence is allowing ourselves that deep satisfaction that we deserve satisfaction in this one lifetime, whatever we get, 90 years, 100 years, if we're women, and we get to spend it how we want to. So that and self-advocacy. So I believe self-advocacy heals, whether it's at work, to ourselves, to our friends, to family. Self-advocacy, meaning like speaking up for for what it is that that voice is trying to tell you.
Right.
Speaking up and being heard, it actually paves the way, parts the seas for whatever the action is going to be. And it shows us the way towards confidence. I think we get confidence by taking actions that we're afraid of.
I think I absolutely loved your answer to this question, because I mean, I got goosebumps because it's exactly the perfect definition. If you think about it in pieces, if we do all of that, then there's our confidence.
Yes. Yes. And suddenly nobody else's opinion matters anymore.
Yes.
There's no more people pleasing. It's a very much a focus on what we love and our authentic self and following that through. Mm-hmm.
That's great. Thank you. So now the other question I was going to ask you is, on your social media, I noticed you had some clips about the energy vampires, and I really like that. I want you to tell our listeners about who the energy vampires are.
Ah, yes, yes. I love that you're asking that. So I believe that if you know the person who you're around that may drain your energy, it might be in any realm that you're in. And it could
Sucks
be
it out.
it could, yeah, sucks your energy out. So life force, almost like it's sucking your blood. That's why they call it energy vampire, because it's sucking your blood out. And it could even be someone like at Starbucks that's the barista, somebody with like sort of negative energy, but it's a bad attitude that they actually gain energy by sucking yours out. And if you notice by the end, you're like, oh, I spent all Saturday with a friend helping them, whatever, or hanging out. And you come back and you're like, God, I feel so like listless and motionless and depressed, or, any form of that's spending time with an energy vampire. And so awareness can be so important to say like, whoa, I don't have energy for that.
Yeah.
And it can be somebody at work too. So I love this. There's a book, Christiane Northrup, who I'm a big fan of, a lifelong fan. Yeah, she wrote a book on energy vampires, and inside the cover, it had the decoration is garlic, little teeny garlic.
I mean, I love the name too. And I'm like, because in my head, I'm like, oh, the negative people or whatever. But now that I have that visual, it's always going to be, I'm like, okay, no. I don't, I'm going to have my garlic and take it with me. But it's very true. And, I think you get to a certain age too. It's like I have zero tolerance now for those energy vampires, because it's like, if I have coffee with someone and I come out and I'm completely drained, even though like the morning was great, it started off great, I worked out, and I'm like, okay, that was it. Like, this is the last time I can't hang out with this energy vampire anymore. So it's very true. I think when we're younger, or we're not as confident, or we don't know as much, and I'm trying to teach my kids this too, like to just be aware of those people who kind of bring you down. We don't need that. There's enough things going on in the world that we don't need that kind of negative energy.
I love it when parents teach their kids these things, because, giving them a choice, like you don't have to hug everyone at the party. You don't have to, giving them a choice to really recognize how are they feeling. Like, oh, have you eaten enough? You don't have to eat everything on your plate.
Right.
You don't have to hang out with that person if it feels, icky, and being able to establish that. I don't think that was really around when I was a kid, that whole idea.
No.
So yeah. So it's so powerful. And the image is a good one. Yeah.
It's a good one. It's one that we will not forget. So can you tell us now about your company, Dreams Transform Reality, and how did you come up with the name too?
Yes, Dreams Transform Reality coaching is like, so yeah, as a creative, I had to use the word dreams, because I believe that, in the core of us lies our dream, and that in the core of us is our purpose. And if we follow it, it transforms us, it transforms our lives, and it transforms our reality. So it may sound a little esoteric, but that's what I do believe, that it's tangible. A dream is actually a tangible thing. And I'm sure there's going to be like the ability to look at your brain scans at some time and be able to tell you what your dream is for your life. And it takes action to get there. So yeah, I love having my own company. I love working with my team. And it's just, working for myself rather than working at a company is super fun. So I encourage anybody who wants to start their own, that it's such a beautiful journey of self-expression and empowerment to be of service to other people. So it's a great way to express purpose.
That is very inspirational. I think you will be very successful. You will have continued success.
Thank you.
So that's great. So now to go back, so for our listeners, you're not really alone if you're experiencing the feeling of imposter at work, school, or in a work setting. Researchers of 2019 suggest that anywhere from 9% to 82% of people have encountered thoughts along these lines at some point in their lives. Initially, early research focused on accomplished and successful women, but it's become evident that imposter syndrome can affect individuals in any profession, from graduate students to top executives, and it can be either female or male. It's crucial to differentiate between the occasional self-doubt and the more pervasive imposter syndrome, which can result from external factors that make you feel unworthy of your position or your accomplishments. There are several effective strategies to combat imposter syndrome. The first step, like Sarah said, is recognizing and acknowledging your feelings of self-doubt. The second step is to challenge your doubts and create a list of all your achievements, big or small. Reviewing this list regularly can help reinforce your self-confidence and remind you of your competence. Building relationships with peers and mentors can also provide a support network that allows you to discuss your feelings and gain perspective from others. And most significantly, avoid the trap of constantly comparing yourself to others. That's a huge no-no. Understand that everyone has their unique journey, and comparing yourself to someone else's path is neither fair or productive. Lastly, embrace your perfectionism and practice self-compassion. This approach can help you maintain a realistic perspective and encourage a healthy personal growth. If you find yourself consistently struggling with imposter syndrome and significantly is impacting your life, you might consider seeking support from a therapist or a coach. Sarah, I really appreciate you for generously sharing your insights and strategies today on battling imposter syndrome. Your guidance has been invaluable in helping us boost our confidence and discover our path towards a greater self-assurance. Is there anything else you would like to share with us today?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking with you, and such thorough questions and such a deep dive. And I really, truly, truly appreciate the connection with you. And that's something I value in my company. So if anyone wants to hear more, they can go to getworkyouLove.com. That's our group coaching. And I do free webinars. And so that can be found on the website, dreamstransformreality.com. And yeah, I look forward to talking with anybody who reaches out, and also continuing the connection with you.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. We will share all the links in our show notes so you can follow Sarah and follow her dreams, like she's doing it beautifully right now. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Pearl.
Thank you everyone for tuning in today to Female Fluence. Together we can influence and motivate other mind-like females. Your job is to feel alive, be in control, and always be true to your own self. Please don't forget to subscribe so you can continue feeling inspired. All the links and notes from this episode will be posted on my website, femalefluence.com. Don't forget to also follow me at Pearl Mashur, a Female Fluence, on both Instagram and Facebook. Lastly, if you're in need of a woman empowerment life coach to help you identify the barriers that keep you from living the life you seek, please send an email to info@femalefluence.org. Remember, my friends, don't just exist, but live your life to the fullest. I'm your host, Pearl Mashur. Until we talk next time.